as I was mentioning about the multiple frameworks that exist, right? And what is happening now, if you see companies are reporting on multiple frameworks. They have carbon disclosure project, they have GRI, they have BRSR, right? There are so many, and if you list the frameworks, and this call would not be sufficient. So there are so many frameworks, and getting expertise into these frameworks is also not easy, right? So then you need to look at what is specific to the industry, what you need, and what's your business. Understand the business. So look at your goals. Which are the areas that you want to focus on?
Hello everyone and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, presented by Directors Institute World Council of Directors, where we bring you exclusive conversations with visionaries who redefine leadership and corporate excellence. Today, we have the privilege of hosting Dr. Dhinesh, a true leader in regulatory affairs, ESG, corporate governance, and stakeholder engagement. With nearly 2 decades of experience across manufacturing, consulting, IT, HR, and government relations, he's been at the forefront of sustainability, compliance, and corporate social responsibility on a global scale. Currently, as advisor at Tansen, he drives CSR initiatives and collaborates with governments on key business policies. His leadership journey includes pivotal roles at Accenture, KPMG, and EY, shaping corporate governance and sustainability frameworks. So, get ready for a power-packed conversation with Dr. Dhinesh, who we proudly welcome on the show today.
Thank you, Tanay, for your wonderful introduction, and I should also thank World Development Council for this opportunity. Without them, probably this would not be happening, and they have been a great influencer throughout my journey in terms of achieving this directorship. So thanks for that, and I look forward for our conversation.
Sir, looking at your journey, nearly 2 decades of shaping sustainability, governance, and regulatory frameworks, it's clear that your career has been built on passion and purpose. But let's take a step back to where it all began. Did you always envision yourself in this space, or was there a defining moment that set you on this path? We'd love to hear about your journey, the challenges, the milestones, and those moments that shaped you into the leader you are today.
That's a great question, indeed. Right. So generally, people say this, right? If something you choose, or whether it chooses you, right? It's that way. It's not me who chose the job, and we apply to many companies, and finally, no one company chooses you. In similar way, I strongly believe the role has chosen me. So I could start with the example of my first job. I started my career with Essar Group in Gujarat, and I was selected as a GET, and I was into the company on first day, and I was allowed to, I was asked to work on the operations. Operations, it is on the shop floor, and where you have to deal with huge equipments. So I was in the brickworking plant, where you have to literally look at all the equipments parameters and adjust it, and probably sometimes if there is a shutdown, you need to literally clean stuffs. So as a possible from a college, and that with the masters, generally people may have that kind of thought block. So why am I here? It's just for this, or so that time there was no thing. To be honest with you, I felt that was not my role, because I want to create more impact in the environmental space. So that was very clear in my mind, whether I know environment completely or not, but that was the intent. Then I spoke to HR, and I expressed my interest where I am. Then HR suggested me, why can't you learn things at the floor, because this is operation, you can understand the entire steel manufacturing process. So that induction gave me the complete information of what the industry is into, how the manufacturing process happens, and all that. In the process of getting inducted, I met one of a stalwart in the environmental area. Is Mr. I would say Dr. Tipnis. His name is Dr. Tipnis, and he worked with major organization. I think right now he's with Reliance, and he was my motivation. The way he explained about environment, the vision he had about environment that point of time. That point of time, CSR as a concept just emerging. I'm saying this is in 2005, 2005. So the way he spoke about the vision he had about the company in terms of environment and all that, that gave me a lot of insights. And when getting into the shop floor and field, and I was always trying to interpret, because steel industry is more of operation intensive and also pollution intensive, right? How we can control pollution and all that. So that was running into my mind, and I got an opportunity to discuss with him. I discussed and I expressed my interest, my background, why I want to be in this area, and I was not sure whether I'll be picked up. And fortunately, surprisingly, next day I got a call from him, and he called me to his cabin, and he asked me about the details, my interest and all that. I explained. I thought, okay, he's interviewing me, and so that I'll get selected and get into the role. But he has given me a challenge, right? He gave one of the worst polluted a unit in the factory, where there are a lot of scope for environmental improvements. And he put me there and he asked me to study for 1 month's time and submit the report. So I put all my efforts. Now we can improve that. So that naturally came out, because that is what I was longing for. And once the report came out, he was also impressed, and he got me on board into the department. And that's where my environmental journey started. So he's the first person to give me intro into the environmental health and safety area, and it started there. And then I worked with a couple of leaders in today's time, Mr. Shivarama and Mr. Premal Shah. Those are other stalwarts on the environmental health and safety space. And there's one more important person, Gupta ji, and he is one of the key person in terms of regulatory affairs who was working with Essar at that point of time. And he is the one who taught me regulatory affairs completely. And that gave me exposure to the core concept of corporate social responsibility. Because whenever we go for expansion or when we go for a greenfield project, we need to interact with Ministry of Environment and Forest and other government stakeholders in understanding what are the application requirements and what are the compliance requirements. And CSR is one of the key metrics that should be part of the application submission, along with the environmental impact assessment. So this gave me a lot of insights and opportunity to go and interact with the community and understand what their community needs. Right here, I need to look into two aspects. One, how the process is going to be environmental friendly, and what way we are going to have a environmental friendly process. How that will how that will support the operation, that will not impact the community. At the same time, what are the community development that the company is going to do? So interacting with them, understanding their perspectives, and put together the plan. And that's where my journey of corporate social responsibility started. And also along with the regulatory affairs, at the early stage of my career, I used to interact with many stalwarts. Even I met our current Prime Minister at that point of time, even 2005, because he was Chief Minister of Gujarat at that point of time. So I got that kind of exposure, to work on the regulatory part. And of course, it paid off the way that we have carried out work that point of time. So that's how my career started, and that's how I got into the environmental and sustainability space. After that, my stint with Ernst Young, KPMG, Accenture, all this into environmental consulting. Because when I was with Essar Group, I also felt the importance of management degree, how that will add value to the field of work that I'm in. So I went abroad to do my MBA in UK, and then came back and joined Ernst Young. And I was consulting many industries. That's the beauty of consulting, right? You can get exposed to multiple sectors, right? You name any sectors right now, I would have worked on it, including mining. So that's a kind of exposure that I've got in almost all sustainability framework that exists at that point of time. And even now, because it started there, and I keep track of those and understanding recent trends and technologies. And finally, when I came into Flextronics, that is Flex, my previous employer, and that gave me a different platform altogether. Because here, so you have the subject matter expertise, and how we can bring that digitally, up in terms of optimizing, the processes. So I got an opportunity with the face of business in developing software solutions for sustainability. I know that is one area, and then I also worked on a couple of initiatives which is related to human rights and environmental compliance of components, and then finally into government affairs, where again dealing with governments on policy part, be it renewable energy or anything related to incentives for the good work that the company does. So all this gave me the culmination or a consolidation of understanding the transition of corporate social responsibility to sustainability, and now what we call ESG. Of course, there's a difference between CSR and ESG, but right, and it's because CSR is more of mandatory and ESG is a voluntary thing. But that's itself a huge topic. And if we get into that, I think time will not be sufficient. Probably I have to address in some of the questions that coming up later.
So it truly shows that how different things happen in your life and thereby define your journey sometimes on their own. So ESG is no longer just a regulatory requirement. It has become a core pillar of responsible leadership. But when it comes to boardroom discussions, integrating ESG into decision making isn't always so straightforward. With your experience advising on governance and compliance at the highest levels, what are the biggest challenges leaders face when trying to embed ESG into strategic business decisions?
Yeah, but one thing is pretty sure, right? Businesses are impacted by the climate change, and there are more pressure from the stakeholders. It's not easy for the businesses, to get into ESG completely, without avoiding, the fact of greenwashing that was, posted on them. Meaning, people are just looking at the company and saying that no, this is what you have done is greenwashing. Because that tag is going to be there, every time. So our company faces this, these challenges. It is primarily because of the composition of the leadership within the organization. That is where I see WDC World Development Council is one of the ESG directorate courses now more relevant in today's context, because it brings the awareness for the people who are going to be part of the board. Right at that level, they need to have that awareness, visibility, and that will help them to make the decisions. Right. So the primary thing is the board should be aware of what ESG is, and they should have the relevant knowledge, and there should be training for them, and because they are the decision makers, and accordingly they can take decisions that are relevant to ESG, and those are sustainable. That is definitely one aspect which could be looked into, and also the committees that are being formed in the organization, right? And that's where the CSR committee right now, which is one of the mandatory committee as per Companies Act, as per the Companies Act, and so when that is there, then ESG also taking the next step part of it could be part of ESG, or it could be a separate board as well. Again, that expertise where you bring in. So you need to bring in experts from outside and understand what is relevant to the industry. So that's where the challenge, right? Because if you see, when companies wants to address the stakeholder requirements, because we are talking about different stakeholders, right? It's all stakeholders, because the climate impact has gone to an extent where the countries have gone and given the carbon emission reduction targets, and they have their sustainability goals, and corporates at their level they have their sustainability goals. And so when they have their goals, what is the plan of action and how they are going to achieve it, right? And when they have the plans, how they are going to implement it. So these are the key challenges that they may face. Since the expertise is also not much, that experience also not much into this field,
Yeah.
and always it's going to be a challenge for the companies how they implement those words. So as I was mentioning about the multiple frameworks that exist, right? And what is happening now, if you see, companies are reporting on multiple frameworks. They have carbon disclosure project, they have GRI, they have BRSR, right? There are so many, and if you list the frameworks, and this call would not be sufficient. So we have so many frameworks, and getting expertise into these frameworks is also not easy, right? So then we need to look at what is specific to the industry, what you need, and what's your business. Understand the business. So look at your goals. Which are the areas that you want to focus on? Who are your suppliers? What is your supply chain? Right? and getting into nitty-gritties of all this and bring this sustainable element, right? Sustainability at each part of it, right? And then decide, right? What is low-hanging fruit, which could be achieved immediately, what should be the short-term goals and what should be the long-term goals. And we call it, in sustainability terms, we call it some materiality issues, right? Materiality issues is something you bring all stakeholders in on board and understand from them what are the key things that they expect from the company or what the company has to do. It could be government, it could be the community, or it could be your vendors, it could be your suppliers, anything. Right? How do you control the entire business aspect of it? That is the key challenge for current leaders, how they could bring in and what kind of frameworks they can adopt, or whether they can customize their framework. And most importantly, they want to just do it for compliance or they want to do it for the real development of the community or development of the environment, right? It's for the sustainable world. So what they want to achieve. So all this can go in two ways. One is technically as well as non-technically. Technically is understanding technically as well as of your process, business and all that. And non-technical is how you strategize it and how you implement it and what are the resources that you need to implement those. And most importantly, the free hand that you give them, right? Because there should be independent judgment when they propose and bring in initiatives. I think that should be there because this is very sensitive topic, right? And if something goes wrong, then probably everybody will be at stake, right? Even the business will be at stake. So that's the challenge what current leaders are facing. But fortunately, I've got those experiences across multiple industries, and I know sometimes I'll be able to deal with it very very cautiously and effectively.
Yeah, there's also very specific skill which is based on experience, right? It's not
Right.
something that everybody can manage.
Exactly. So to add one more thing to it, right? So because it's a risk management, how the company has to do and what kind of operational efficiencies they also could bring in by implementing those initiatives. I could
Yeah.
take a couple of examples. For example, if you look at Windows, right? You have your laptop and you go and check for updates, and you can see under that, right? The updates are optimized for reducing carbon emissions. So something like that. It
Yeah.
says, right, the company, you can see how committed the company is in terms of addressing the climate part, the ESG part. And take for Unilever, for example. And Unilever already embedded their ESG into the corporate strategy, because corporate strategy is the key. And from where you can take on the business to next level, how you can address most of the critical part of risk in the organization, right? And so that's where somehow I'm also helping startups, being advisor of Tansom, and even my previous company, we have done some initiatives.
So, the conversation around carbon neutrality and decarbonization has moved from ambition to urgency, with industries worldwide facing growing pressure to take real action. With your deep expertise in climate action programs, carbon accounting, and ESG strategy, how can businesses move beyond pledges and implement practical, measurable carbon reduction strategies that create long term impact without compromising business growth?
Okay, so carbon accounting is, because when we talk about ESG, though ESG is environment, social, and governance part, so governance is something, with the research that is seriously missing. It's not addressed to the core, right? But when you talk about the carbon accounting, that comes under environmental part. That's where everything relating to or related to climate change, right? What is happening carbon accounting in the current scenario? So if you look at carbon accounting, it is measuring your carbon of your company. If you look at the major scale, and if you look at the micro scale at the product level, it could be, right? So what are the emissions that are accounting towards your each step of the process? What is happening right now? I'll give a simple example. Today you drove car from your home to office, right? And you travel some kilometers, and you must have used fuel. It could be petrol or it could be diesel. We'll not take EV for now, we'll park it for later. So these two, right? And when you drive from home to office, you have consumed certain amount of fuel, right? And what we do currently to calculate your emissions of that travel. So if you travel, say, for around some 20 kilometers, we go to global database, right? Which exists, could be IPCC or it could be any other database like Acropolis, right? And we take the data and say that, okay, for this amount of fuel consumed, this is my carbon emission. So is that the right approach? So if you ask me, that's not the right approach, right? Because the fuel produced, it's not the same fuel that produced across the globe. The reason why we are referring to the common or database, because we don't have the real data. So that is the challenge. So I just taken the example of automobile, but whether we could able to achieve that in the automobile sector, because that is I could not discuss right now. But we can look at real data in many of the processes that are under the control of the company. Say, for example, agriculture. You can pretty much control, because what's happening in my previous example when I talked about the car, right? There you're not considering the emissions that are accounted while you produce the car, right? While you transported the car, right? And the usage of the car, because this is a depreciation, right? When you have same way, the car is also usage, and you have not considered the shelf life of the product. So when you include all that, your carbon value obviously increase. So that's where now companies are, looking at, and we have a protocol called GHG protocol where it talks about scope 1 emissions, scope 2 emissions, scope 3 emissions, all
Yeah.
this related to direct, indirect, and indirect by the company or indirect by their supply chain, right? So they have various scopes, but those scopes are again restricted. Now you could able to calculate and report only to that scope, right? So that is not the right thing to do, in my opinion, because we need to look at the real data, and we also look at all the resources attached to that specific process. In that way, it could be a detailed exercise, and the real data when comes in play, the actual emissions that is accounted. Even your audit of those carbon accounting will also be valid. Right now, you have several mechanisms, but that is where it has to it leads to, because there are huge benefits because of that. Once in 2005 to 2010, 11, I could say carbon market was at the peak, right? There were so many projects that have come in, right? Carbon reduction, and people have reduced carbon. They have, gained a lot of money out of that, because they traded, carbon emissions into the market, right? And then but in 2010, when the regulations also became strong, and the carbon market completely gone up. It's almost died. Once it was $14 per ton of carbon dioxide emission, and it has come down to $0.2. So it gone to that bad extent, because this shows how the regulations also evolved over the period, and how climate has become more important. Still, those mechanisms are exist, right? You have multiple methods, or multiple organizations. Say, for example, IFC have their own standards in case they want to fund any project, and they insist on ESG, and they insist on corporate social responsibility, right? And when you do, or when you adhere to those stakeholder requirements, so what happens? Automatically, you are moving to follow some of the practice, because one, for the business you need to get funding, and for to run the business, that has become more important. That's why you need to adhere to all the regulations, or standards that has been set by it could be government organization, or it could be any financial corporations, right? And by doing this, what is the benefit for me? Generally, you ask. Right? So for me, as a company, the primary priority is the profit, right? And ESG is a long-term goal. Whether will I look at the short-term profit or the long-term goal, right? That's where the key challenges comes in. You need to look at how my long-term goals would benefit financially as well. So that part right now is missing, right? And that's where some of the research are also going on. I'm also working on one of those. But right, so industries or companies have a lot of scope to create that impact. For example, let us forget about the oil and gas industries or any industries that are carbon intensive. Take right? Banking companies. So banks are not that carbon intensive. but still they could able to create more impact. How they could able to more impact? Because they have a lot of fund to invest on ESG. One, whenever they approve projects, they insist on ESG, so they're creating the impact, and they know what CSR has to be done through that. Right, that way they are creating. And specifically, you take India. I mean, India, you have CSR. CSR is mandated, unlike in other countries. Right, with 2% of your profit, you have to spend on your CSR project. That is corporate social responsibility, where environment is also included. Right? And just imagine banks are huge profit and they are creating wonders. I know some of the banks like IndusInd, right? For example, I'm saying, and one of my friends who is heading CSR there, they're doing excellent work, right? Not only in the space of they've gone beyond. They have went into GIS and they went into AI and they are creating extraordinary impact. So that is what is required. It's not that no banks are not carbon intensive and they should not they don't have much to do. That's why they are in. So this should be the responsibility of every company where they could think of those innovations and they can promote innovations on climate technologies, climate tech, and how they can address more into the carbon spaces. So coming back to the carbon, so to me, real data is very much required. And how you get that real data, how you relate it to your financial aspects and showing or proving kind of financial impacts or benefits that would bring by implementing ESG. So irrespective of that, the company has to do ESG, and that's how they need to look at how they can bring it as part of their corporate strategy, and then how they can build it. But this is one of the key area. I know the research is also going on. Even I'm personally involved in developing some of the solutions with this, and probably I can discuss with you in the later question. Yeah.
And very well said, sir, about the car example that you gave. I think that will really help our audience understand what you mean by the real carbon emissions that a product can cost versus what we just think it does.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're standing at the cusp of Industry 5.0, where AI and automation aren't just enhancing efficiency, they're fundamentally reshaping how businesses approach sustainability and governance. So, as an advisor to the Tamil Nadu government's TANSAM initiative, you've been deeply involved in crafting policies that bridge technology, industry, and sustainability. So, how do you see AI and automation transforming ESG strategies, and what should leaders do today to ensure they're leveraging these advancements for both business growth and responsible governance?
Right. So AI, artificial intelligence. So one of the reason why I got associated to Tamil Nadu Smart and Advanced Manufacturing, because they're dealing with Industry 4.0, and Industry 5.0 is already on cards. So to give you just outline of what Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0 is, Industry 4.0 is more of a automation. Right? So how you optimize your process, by bringing in, automation technologies, right? And when it is there, it not only increases your efficiency, it reduces resources and all that is there, but the element of sustainability, though it is inculcated, but it is not clear. That was missing, and that's where Industry 5.0 has come into place. Now that will cut across the automation part where sustainability is embedded, right? So Industry 4.0 is transition of Industry 4.0 into sustainability, right? So that's where the Industry 5.0 comes in, and here AI plays a major role, right? Because AI is all about data. So right now, what is happening? Because I gave the clear example of carbon emission data, real data versus the reference data, right? Why we are referring to the reference data? Because there is no real data exists, right? Whether real data exists or not, that's itself a question. The data does exist. It is with the industries. It is with your own company. If you get into any company, you look at their ERP or other systems there, definitely there must be monitoring all the equipments, all the data. The data is there, right? How to convert those data into a meaningful data, that is the question, right? And how we can do it. And only AI could help. And we need to find out what are the data that we could take out of this, how we can make sense of this data, and how we can develop solutions, and how this will help in addressing major problems. So that's where AI comes into game. So I was explaining about carbon emission tool, and also advising some of the startups in Tansa. So I'll address two questions through this. One is on the carbon tool, right? I talked about the real data versus the reference data. So what we're trying to do, where I'm also advising one of a French-based startup, right? And actually, we are trying to so I'll put it this way. So you know balance sheet of a company, right? In the balance sheet, you have all credits and debits, right? So you have a balance sheet. So with the same balance sheet, all the headers in the balance sheet, and we are trying to bring in carbon associated to each of the process in similar way. So what will happen? You have a balance sheet for carbon accounting, which one side says, what are your credits? Credit means that you have emitted. Your debits, debit means what you saved. In other, if you look at the balance sheet, it's otherwise. Debit is your debt and credit is something that you have, right? Here, debt is something you have as an emission, which is your savings, and credit is that thing that something you have emitted. So that way, this is a overview logic of what we are building, and it's almost 60% ready, and the tool is 60% ready, and this will definitely create a huge impact in the market. I'm happy to be part of those. Why I'm saying this is right. So to what extent you go with the use of AI. So when we have the tool, obviously you need to look into all the data that comes in, whether you have financial data, non-financial data, everything, and you bring into that, and you build the AI logic on it, and then it runs and see what are the predictive analysis that could be obtained out of it. So one of the projects, it's another project, it's for oil and gas industry, and they've found a specific type of liquid which will enable to clear the impurities when they do the drilling from oil drillings for anywhere they have their process, shore drilling process, right? And what kind of savings it would bring by using them. Again, it needs to depend, it all depends on the process data. And because you have huge process like SCADA and all that as part of the oil and gas industries, right? So this initiative has given us lead to something else. Why can't we look at all those data and how we can find out, right, all the different parameters and what specific period equipment become failure, and how we can address that beforehand, and we can reduce it so that operations is not stopped, energy is saved, right? Energy is not. So again, everything is related to sustainability, right? If you think about sustainability as a concept, you can relate anything and everything to it. But how you bring and implement it, so that is the key. Here, AI is going to play definitely a major role, not only reducing the efforts, reducing the time, but also reducing your emissions, and so that the impact, positive impact on the climate. So yeah. So that way it could automate many processes, even it could automate your supply chain. And one thing, when you have all this, then you will have a handful of data, not handful of, you'll have huge data. And you can see what has to go to the public, and how we can make transparency more effective by having this data, so that you can communicate it right. Sometimes with the limited data, whatever we communicate, the stakeholders tend to take it in a different way. Though you publish positively, they bring it some negative aspects of it, and then they started troubling the companies, right? So this is the advantage of artificial intelligence. I think it's a long way to go, but but we are already in the path of creating some solutions for it.
Yeah, very well said, sir. Sir, with your deep expertise in policy advocacy and government affairs, you've had a front row seat in seeing how regulations evolve to drive responsible business practices. So, looking ahead, what key policies or regulatory shifts do you believe will define the next decade of corporate governance and sustainability?
Yeah, that's a good question on policies, right? How the policies has been evolving over the period. So we know businesses are facing enormous, I will not say pressure, more than the pressure, I should say challenges, right? It's the environmental and social challenges that they are facing. So what is up? So what is required getting into the future? So one thing is definitely AI related ESG. I could say AI driven ESG. How that could create more impact, and also board accountability, right? How board could have ESG in place, how they are much aware of the ESG, and how that ESG will take help them in decision making. That is one, and of course having the committees with rich in knowledge of ESG, or at least you can accumulate those knowledge. What is required. So if you look at the policies that have been evolving, right? So because I was discussing about 2005, you have limited number of frameworks. Right now, if you look at frameworks, there are so many frameworks. Day in, day out, one thing or other coming up. So those days when GRI, Global Reporting Initiative came in, it was more generic. And then GRI started developing industry-specific reporting frameworks. And then if you look at something very recently is that one of the framework is CBAM, where Europe has come in saying that when you export products to them, based on your product, based on your product carbon value, your tax is going to be. It means more the carbon, more the tax. So in a way, business is compelled to do. Say, for example, if you are not addressing the ESG part of it, and you emit more carbon, not only it's going to eat your profit. And when it eats your profit, automatically the product cost will increase. The product cost will ultimately impact the consumers, right? And it in turn affects the economy as well, right? And some people may afford, some people may not afford. So that is the challenge. But government is also forthcoming, right? I think again, instead of looking at the macro, of course, macro policy is required here, and we need to start with the step one, right? The step one has to be from the initiatives. It could be the organization which is bringing in initiatives related to ESG and all that. Because now we also mentioned it's becoming more of a stakeholder expectations, right? Because you have to meet multiple stakeholder expectations, because those days are gone. Stakeholders are interested only mainly, we will say shareholder first, now changed into stakeholder capitalism. I'll put it that way, right? Because the stakeholder is adding the key here. So one of the example that I could, real-time example is that I'm working closely with an organization of Tamil Nadu government, which I mentioned, TANSA, and as part of it, and we also exploring multiple opportunities. How we bring in some of the common framework for the industry. So one of that, it is being driven by the industry ministry in Tamil Nadu, and they formed a SPV, kind of special purpose vehicle, collaborating with major institutes like IIT, all the time. I'm also part of it, and there are more experts from the industry, like not only from sustainability, from all the other areas, be it supply chain or be it process, right? All have come together, and we are trying to know what is the problem that industry is facing. It's like we'll reach out, we have defined a scope of a specific industrial sector or industrial park, right? And that industrial park, we go to almost all the industries and we'll ask them, what is your problem statement? You provide your problem statement and we'll come out with a solution. These are all on ESG, sustainability solution, right? You look at the solution, you look at the plan of action, and you think that is relevant. Why can't we develop a solution, right? So we'll first give the proposal. The solution is more of a proposal, and then we'll create that solution for them. Say, for example, if I go to automotive industry and I'll get inputs from 10 automotive industry, and in that region some 100 automotive industries exist, and with the help of the government, right, at free of cost, even government is not looking at commercializing the product. They're looking at how we can build sustainability. They want to push this into those industry and saying that, hey, look at, you have the solution here, and this is the common problem statement that exists in your industry, and in case if you have interest, why can't you try it, right? Try that and see how it could well. This is one of the most interesting area of work. You understand the problem from what the ESG problem from what they are facing, and then with the group, with the industry experts, develop a solution and give that solution. And later, Right now, we do it for a one industrial park and could be leveraged to the multiple industry parks, not only in Tamil Nadu, across India. Right? We may not know how these innovations will propel into a further commercially viable product, or even we need not to look at commercial. How this
Yeah.
could be a ESG saver kind of
True.
a product. So that is something we are working on, and also we are bringing in talents like startups have many ideas, and startups are party to it, right? When they get the problem statement, and without knowing the company, they know what needs to be done, what industry 4.0 intervention they can do, and I can help in how we can build that up with industry 5.0, and how we can achieve sustainability or ESG, and we also look at what are the benefits that is available, right? So that is the way it has to be, and government is more supportive and more policy frameworks are coming in. I was talking about, for just one example, I want to tell you about the problem statement, right? And we talked about the carbon emission. We also spoke about the car. I'll give a different perspective of, we didn't talk about EV then. So let me take the EV example of EV. Why EV, though EV is said to be environmental friendly product, it's saving more emissions and all that. And in what way it is applicable to India, right? Many leaders, if you look at, they won't agree to it because India is still depending more on the fossil fuel, right? We are not completely on the renewable energy. When this will become meaningful, when you have more renewable energy and less fossil fuel, then the usage of EV become really environmental friendly car. So right now, if you ask me whether that EV concept is not applicable to India, why too many people are buying, now that again it's a personal choice, right? If you ask me, in my organization, if I promote EV, then I need to ensure the EV getting charged, the source of power is coming from renewable resources, right? It's a renewable energy.
Yeah.
So
Then it will be
yeah,
completely. Yeah.
as a company, what will I do? I will wheel in green energy. My process is completely green. Then my employee uses EV. Then that makes sense. Then the other factors which also hitting EV is that, right? The lithium ion battery that you use, the resourcing of the battery, recyclability of the battery. That is not very clear. But there are technologies that are being developed, right? They are optimizing the batteries and the kind of blades they use, where there could be more energy transformation, so that the charging time is reduced, and so that materials usage in the battery is reduced, so that you can provide a compact battery which has a more power. So for possibly you can provide 81 kilowatt of a power battery, probably in a very very small size, right? So that your complete design structure of your car will change in future.
Yeah.
It will be more spacious and all that. Of course, you are also reducing the waste. Just for example, I want to bring that context here because we talked about EV. When we talk about our own process, or right, own framework, right, we need to, it has to be very specific, and that specificity comes to the, so globally something is not globally, I say is majorly somewhere something is not accepted, still it makes relevance to you, still it will be sustainable to you, but how you related to your process, that is very key to understand the business. That's where the corporate strategy comes in, plays a key role here, how you embed that those things here.
Yeah.
And of course, government is very friendly. You go to government and they will support you on all means, because being in the government affairs, I specifically experienced all that, right? In terms of policy, they will listen to you. You say
Yeah.
that, so this is not covered as part of the policy. Okay, come. So let us walk to that. You give your inputs, and also we reach out to multiple industries. Then we make a robust policy, right? But what is required? You need that kind of expertise in the company, so that someone can go and talk on behalf of you, so that you not only create impact, positive impact in you, we also create positive impact to the community.
Yeah.
So that way, policies are there, and it can be made very strong, but the approach is what it meant. So if you ask me, if I put it very simple words, AI driven ESG plus stakeholders capitalism, that is stakeholders requirement, and when you address this, then it is going to be successful business proposition. So that's how I see it, because complaints also comes into place.
Yeah, 100%. And today the government wants people to go green, and they'll always help if you have any ideas related to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because stakeholder-centric governance is very, very important in this. That's why, AI-driven ESG plus stakeholder governance will lead to successful business creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, your career has been a remarkable journey of driving sustainability, governance, and policy transformation across industries. With such a vast impact already made, I'm just curious what next for you. Like, as you look ahead, what are your future aspirations, both in terms of your professional journey and your role in boardroom leadership?
Right. So yeah, even I didn't realize because it's almost 2 decades and almost 20 years in this field. But it's looked like as if I joined yesterday and still learning things, and that's how the space is also evolving. So one of the key decisions that I made, uh, to be more cautious about the corporate governance, how this could create more impact in the boardroom. Because in the previous organization, I was pretty much part of the board, not in the capacity of director, but in the capacity of uh, I could say at the committee level, because I was heading the CSR, corporate social responsibility part, and always I make sure whenever I do something, it has to be with the strong intent. It's not that we are doing just for the tick in the box. No, it's not that way. That's why though we have many avenues to spend money easily, whatever the CSR fund that is available or any environmental initiative that we want to do, we can look at easy aspects. But I'll always choose the other route. I'll always try to find the balance that where we can create more impact. See, the most important when you operate in an environment, your external environment, that is your community, is very important, right? No doubt about it, right? When you do that, it's not that you just do only for the community, the projects that are not impacting, they're not creating any positive impact in the environment, right? The one issue that the whole world is facing is water problem, right? Another thing, of course, energy, right? And these two has to be addressed. And
Yeah.
at the same time, it's also the responsibility of the company to create the awareness in the local community as well. So looking at that in this, in this space, I've worked on almost everything. You covered that very well as part of the introduction, right? So, so one area which I felt I really want to make an impact, in the boardroom, because this is the opportunity where I could bring in all my experience, because I have diverse experience, right? Uh, but I don't know whether I'm master of everything, but at least I'm master of what I know in terms of ESG and sustainability. But I am jack of other trades as well, right? If you look at human rights, I've worked on HR, human resources, I have worked on conflict minerals, I have worked on, right, and supply chain, localization of supply chain strategy. That is the other area that I worked on, right? And government affairs, of course, licensing with government bodies, different stakeholders, and in initial stages, even I part of conducting the public hearing and interacted with one of the key Ministry of Environment and Forest, now changed into Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So all these have given me, vast experience, and I'll definitely be a value add to any organization if I get an opportunity being there. But having said that, it's not only the opportunity, right? It is the satisfaction that you get
Yeah.
out of the job, and that is the reason why I'm to this space. If you ask me if something they're given you some technical job, and when I don't see that impact in the community and it's not benefiting the society, then I'll feel
Yeah.
bad, right?
Yeah.
So the innovation is that when you bring in, so that's where skilling is most important thing, and big time that I'm into. And last year, if you could also look at, we have set up a couple of center of excellences, bridging the electronic industry gap, but at the same time bringing in the innovation into this and sustainability into it, because the entire curriculum is about the circular, right? Because there are a lot of e-waste is happening, and how this could be, effectively managed. and how the companies industry could come forward and work with the government in terms of bridging the gap. So these are the areas that I've worked on. But one area, as I mentioned, is I'm definitely looking at the boardroom. I have the boardroom presence, but I'm looking at being there and looking at what is the specific requirement of the industry and engaging the board and creating the awareness in the board and being the expert, bringing the sustainability expertise into the board and see how could I be helpful not only to the organization and also to the community, to the organization, how they can achieve the short-term financial performance along with the ESG long-term goal, and what are the benefits I could bring in. So that
Yeah.
is something I'm really looking at. But I am happy with the current role as well, because where I'm already creating a lot of impact by mentoring startups on the sustainability space. And I brought in already a lot of initiatives, which shows, I have a diverse experience in handling, large scale projects, especially in the area of ESG and, CSR. And
Yeah.
since my field is environment, I'm always, I get charged immediately when I work on any environmental projects that brings positive impact to the community.
And it's lovely to hear, sir, that someone actually looking at making good change in the society and not just for themselves, for the entire community and the world that will come in later. Sir, you've recently been part of Directors Institute. We would love to know how this experience has shaped your governance perspective and what value do you see it bringing to professionals looking to enhance their boardroom expertise.
So I'm very fortunate to get noticed by WDC as the World Development Council. If I would have not got the message. Probably I would have not enrolled for it. So that is for sure, because there was so much of happening in this area. Independent director, ESG or certification, ESG or directorship, and all that. I used to hear those jargons, and I was looking at what is that and how that could add more value to me, right? And sometimes you'll also have that you'll be super confident that you know everything about it, and you think that so what it would offer,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes, but I didn't have that attitude. Rather, I always look at, right. So even though some of your our area and uh, what could be different there and what it could offer. So it's all started there. And so that's why I am fortunate enough to be associated with them. And the kind of content they have, it is very vast, I should admit. Right? If that content is not there, probably I would not got more exposure, not only on the different acts and related to stakeholder engagement, but also related to ESG and the module they have framed it, excellent. The other value add, the beauty of it is they bring in the expert sessions, and when you interact with those experts, they are the stalwarts already in the industry, and the way they speak, the inputs they have given, and it is mind blowing, right? They have everything in the fingertips, and they have guided me very well with the questions, even the questions that I have asked them, or the kind of knowledge transfer they did to us. I think you won't get this even if you go and register in the portal and write the examination directly. Right? If you want to get the certification, it's easy to get. But if you want to get the knowledge, and that's where you need institutes like WDC, and there is more than that is the integration, right? So I talked about only one part of the certification, right? And you have ESG and something called digital directorship or global directorship. All these are different concepts. Though the concept of governance is the base, but if you look at the content, the modules, the framework, all varies, and all these are interrelated.
Yeah.
So what this also did, this helped me to interpret the common framework across this area, and also give me a kind of creative thinking. So how we can bring this into this, and how we can frame something a different framework which could be useful for implementation. So that I already started doing, and that I'm already trying to implement with the startups which I'm mentoring. So that way, they have created a huge, enormous value. I think the guidance and the kind of support they have provided is excellent. I think this has to continue, and more people should, like me, should benefit out of this.
And that gets us to the end of today's episode. So, thank you so much for joining in today. You have truly opened our eyes to the power of ethical leadership, the transformative impact of governance frameworks, and the importance of fostering sustainability within every business decision. To all our viewers, remember the path to impactful leadership starts with questions we ask and the actions we take. So let's take that step together. Stay tuned for more such episodes with business leaders like Mr. Dinesh we have today on our show. Hopefully, you have a great journey ahead, everyone watching, and we will see you on the next episode of FaceTime with Leaders. Until then, keep striving for success and have fun in your journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank you.